Welcome. You're here now, and the world outside can wait. The rush, the ticking of clocks, the long to-do lists, they all fade away, if only for a little while. Tonight, we'll take a slow journey into a surprisingly overlooked part of history. Doing absolutely nothing, or rather the way humans across the centuries have approached rest, from the humblest naps under ancient skies to the structured silences of monasteries, from royal lounging in silken robes to the quiet rebellions of the modern weekend. This is not a history of battles or great inventions. It is not the story of kings or conquerors, though they may drift in, reclining on velvet cushions or pacing slowly through a shaded garden. Instead, we'll visit the quiet corners of the past, the hammocks, the public baths, the reading nooks, the still afternoons where nothing much happened. And that in itself was everything. So find your own comfortable place, whatever it may be. Let your breath slow, let your eyes soften, and imagine yourself reclining under ancient sun in a world where stillness had its own sacred rhythm. Segment 1. Ancient naps, hammocks, and public lounging in the earliest cities long before the hum of electricity or the noise of machines. Time itself moved more slowly. Imagine yourself walking through a narrow street in ancient Mesopotamia. The air is warm, thick with the scent of baked clay and crushed herbs. The sky above is pale and still, and the market has fallen quiet. It is midday. The sun is high. Here, work slows. The tools of labor are set aside. In shaded courtyards, people retreat into silence, seeking relief from the heat and the day's fatigue. This was no indulgence. It was rhythm. Napping, short, deliberate sleep in the heart of the day, was part of life. In ancient Egypt, too, rest was respected. Laborers building temples or tending the fields would find time, even if brief, to rest under awnings or trees. The Nile moved slowly, and so did they. Sleep in many of these cultures was not strictly confined to nighttime. The world was not lit by bulbs and screens, and people followed the rhythm of the sun and the needs of the body. There are fragments of art from the Minoans and Mycenaeans, early Greek civilizations, depicting figures reclining, often in the shade of trees or in the cool of stone courtyards. Leisure, when it appeared, was not laziness. It was civilization. In ancient Greece itself, the practice of anapausis, a term meaning rest or repose, was both physical and philosophical. Plato described the value of contemplation and stillness. The Greeks built public spaces not only for discourse and exercise, but also for relaxing. The palaestra, for example, was a place to train the body, yes, but also to sit, talk, or nap in the shade. Philosophers lingered in these spaces, letting thoughts float gently. Further west, in the world of ancient Rome, lounging became art. The triclinium, or dining room, was not filled with chairs, but with cushioned couches. People didn't sit to eat, they reclined. Imagine lying on your side, elbow resting on a cushion as servants bring olives, figs, and wine. The meal stretches for hours. Conversation drifts between politics, poetry, and gossip. Outside, a fountain trickles. The stone floor is cool. The ceiling is painted like the sky. The Roman elite didn't just allow idleness. They designed for it. Their villas had gardens with shaded colonnades and small pools, ideal for drifting from room to room in no particular hurry. Even in public, Romans enjoyed lounging. The thermae, public baths, were more than places to wash. They were temples of leisure. You could soak, steam, stroll, and then lie down in a tepidarium, a warm room, perfect for rest. And far across the sea, in Central and South America, the guide, hammock, woven from plant fibers suspended between trees or beams, offered another form of rest. Indigenous peoples such as the Taino and Maya used hammocks not just for sleep, but for gentle swaying rest during the heat of day. There is something deeply human about a hammock. It holds the body without pressure, it rocks like a cradle, and it allows the mind to drift. Imagine yourself there, in a clearing surrounded by trees, a faint breeze moving the leaves. You're lifted off the earth, gently swaying. Above, birds call in the distance. Below, ants march with no concern for you. In this world before clocks, doing nothing was not seen as wasted time. It was recovery, balance, harmony, with heat, with hunger, with fatigue. And this rhythm, this slow, restful rhythm, would continue in different forms for centuries, though time would change. Empires would rise and fall, and in certain corners of the world, rest would take on another shape entirely, a spiritual one. Let's drift there now, to the hush of monasteries, to the stillness of cloisters, to the quiet devotion of monks who mastered the art of doing nothing at all. The world of the monastery was built not for speed, but for silence. Imagine yourself stepping into a stone cloister in the 9th or 10th century. The air is still, touched with the faint scent of candle wax, parchment, and cool limestone. The light is dim, filtered through narrow windows, casting soft patterns on the tiled floor. Here, the rhythms of the day are marked not by minutes or alarms, but by bells. The tolling of the bell divides time into sacred segments. Matins before dawn, lauds at sunrise, vespers at dusk, and compline before sleep. In between, the monks move slowly. They pray, they chant, they copy manuscripts, one careful stroke at a time, and they spend long stretches of their days in silence. But this silence is not emptiness. It is full of thought. The monastic tradition, particularly within the Benedictine and Cistercian orders, cultivated something remarkable: the deliberate embrace of stillness. Saint Benedict, whose rule guided thousands of monastic lives across Europe, emphasized ora et labora, pray and work. But within that cycle, he left space. Space for lectio divina, the slow meditative reading of scripture. Space for silent meals, where monks might sit side by side in quiet, chewing slowly as a brother read aloud from a sacred text. This wasn't laziness. It was discipline. To be still, to live without distraction or urgency, was a way of getting closer to the divine. Monasteries often stood at the edges of the world, atop windswept cliffs, in forested valleys, or behind thick stone walls. In part, this was to keep the noise of the outside world away, but it also reflected an inward turn. The monk's life was a kind of sacred withdrawal, not from duty, but from restlessness. Imagine yourself as a monk at Cluny or Monte Cassino. You rise in darkness, wrapped in your wool robe. The floor is cold beneath your feet. You walk in silence to the chapel where the voices of your brothers rise in soft melodic chant. You do not rush. There is no reason to. You will work, yes, tending gardens, binding books, brewing ale. But the hours are long and quiet. There are moments, many of them, when there is nothing to do but sit, or walk slowly, or gaze out at the wind moving through the grass. Even time itself feels different here. The monastery is a place where the day is not something to be conquered, but something to be carried. Gently, thoughtfully. The Cistercians in particular embraced simplicity. Their architecture was austere, their lives uncluttered. They believed that beauty came from order, and order came from peace. Their silence was not a burden, but a relief. In Eastern monastic traditions, among Orthodox Christians or Buddhist monks, this devotion to stillness took other forms but carried a similar core. Zen monks, for example, practiced zazen, seated meditation. Long hours spent doing what appeared to be nothing at all. Yet within that stillness, a world opened. To sit, to breathe, to do nothing, and yet everything. Imagine it now, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, eyes gently lowered, hands resting in your lap. Around you, the room is quiet, except for the occasional creak of wood or the soft sound of breath. No clocks, no voices, no urgency, just you in the moment. Even outside of monastic walls, medieval people recognized the value of rest. Pilgrims paused on long roads to rest under trees. Nobles retreated to private chapels or gardens for quiet prayer. But it was the monks who turned idleness into art, not the idleness of sloth or distraction, but a purposeful, sacred kind, a kind of silence that you can feel in your bones. As the sun moved slowly across the stone walls, casting long golden shadows, they sat, they thought, they prayed, they did nothing, beautifully, and in doing so they preserved a rhythm that the modern world so often forgets, that slowness can be sacred, that stillness can be strength, that doing nothing might be the most human thing of all. But of course not all lives were cloistered, not all stillness was spiritual. Some lounged in silk, some feasted for hours, some did nothing because they could. Let us leave the monastery now and step into the shaded halls of palaces and castles, to the noblemen and women whose idleness was a privilege and a performance.